Well, October is also the month of the Rosary, and in this interview segment, our good friend Kate Andrews had a chance to speak with Susan Bailey about her Marian songs and writings. So let's hear what they had to talk about.
Today on This Is the Day, we welcome popular blogger, singer, and author Susan Bailey into the living room. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, you are the author of this book, River of Grace. But, I mean, Catholic TV viewers know you from numerous telethon appearances. I mean, everybody knows you. Now, tell us a little bit about, the process of becoming an author and now the release of this book.
It was not something that was expected. It was, I've been a musician for years, but then in the middle of the 2000s, my parents became ill. My father died in 2003 and my mother in 2010. And by that time, unfortunately, grief has a way of kind of ripping everything from you. So, and I remember distinctly after my mother went into hospice, and I basically said to the Lord, I don't want to resurrect my music again if it's going to be ripped away from me. I really want to put it to bed. Yeah. So, of course, he had other ideas. But at the time, he's like, it's okay, so I just let it go. I let everything go. And then as I was going through the grieving process with my mom, I was just really numb because she'd been ill for many years. I started reading, which I hadn't done since I was a kid. And I turned to the one person that I always read about, and that was Louisa May Alcott. And, with her house nearby in Concord, Massachusetts, I would read biographies about her and then go visit the house and have my little pilgrimage, and that would be the end of it. This time around, though, my mother had antique copies of some of her most famous books, including Little Women, and they had her little personal nameplate inside. And as I read those books and turned the pages, it helped to kind of reconnect me with my mom when she was healthy and vital. And I discovered that Louisa May Alcott has a very wonderful, very sacred view of death and suffering, which matched right up with what I believe, because that was one thing that was unshakable during the whole thing, was my belief in the afterlife. And her very poignant writing about suffering and grief really helped me a lot through mine. So I started writing about her on a blog called Louisa May Alcott is My Passion. As I wrote that, I became interested in writing in general and started branching out and started another blog called Be As One. And then I started writing for the Catholic newspaper in Worcester, the Catholic Free Press. I was part of a group commission that put on women's conferences every couple years, and so I was tagged to do the articles on the different speakers. One of them was Sister Bridget Haas, who must have liked what I did because she got in touch with an acquisitions editor at Ave Maria, and I got the call. Long before I felt ready, I might add, but she gave me the call, and so we went ahead with this book.
So tell us a little bit about the book.
This is a spiritual memoir. It's recounting my experiences of grief with losing my mother and father, and also after I lost my mother, I developed acid reflux and lost my singing voice for a time. And just basically, the first half of the book basically deals with these losses and how I dealt with it with my grief. The second half of the book, though, is about the transformation that took place because of grief. I really feel that grief is a creative process all of its own. God uses it if you're willing to go along with it. God uses it to transform you into someone new. And this is exactly what happened. This whole business of becoming an author and the reading and all the various changes that happened in my life, I document in this book. But this isn't just a book about me. There are journal questions and practical prayer exercises called flow lessons, which have you working with common objects and things like stones and spaghetti and Joni Mitchell music and whatever will point you to God.
So it's not only your story, it's you trying to help other people who might be going through similar circumstances.
Yeah, I'm hoping that there'll be common experiences shared there. And then another key point to the book is about creativity and how people have the misconception that unless you're talented as a singer or a dancer or a writer or an artist, you're not creative, and that's not true. We're all, because we have the Holy Spirit, the creative Holy Spirit within us, we all have the ability to be creative. It's really how you live your life with intent. I give an example of my mom who each week would change the sheets on our beds. She'd send the sheets out to be washed. They'd come back all crisp and white. She'd do her hospital corners, and you'd get into the bed at night, and it would be just, the sheets would be so crisp and cool and comforting. And I just felt surrounded by the love of my mother because of that intent that she created a moment for me by doing that, and a memory that I can keep. And I just felt like I've run into so many women around my age who just don't have any idea of how much giftedness they have. They don't realize that their gifts of hospitality and domesticity, both things that I struggle with, those things are so important and so helpful, and they're so valuable to God, and they can do so much for others. And so the idea is to help people realize that there is creativity and giftedness is in all areas of life, not just in the arts.
What a beautiful thought. And of course, you're a songwriter, transitioning from songwriting to being an author. What an incredible journey you must have had. Now tell us, where can people find more about the book, about you, about your blogs? You mentioned quite a few of them there.
Yeah. The central blog to visit would be susanbailey.org. I have lists of, where my blogs are, where they can go and visit, but it has all the information about the book and other things that I've done. The book is put out by Ave Maria Press, so you can visit the Ave Maria Press website. Also, it's on Amazon.
Thanks so much for being with us, Susan, today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And we'll send it back to more of This Is the Day.